the judgment against him unfair and discriminatory.
Yes.
If he wasn't approved, he planned to go again through the courts and was rumored to have friends in high political offices locally, which may have held some merit. And I think I misread that. They did turn him down. Anyway, in the days that followed, Horan's assistant Joe Williamson announced that they had run their program at the ballpark instead of the armory, but couldn't yet name the wrestlers on the bill. Bucking back against the rogue promoter, the boxing commission threatened to take appropriate action if the wrestling show went on without approval. Williamson told the Observer that they were having trouble getting the wrestlers, and on April 21st, Horan's show was canceled for that reason. Horan responded to the Boxing Commission's effort to stifle his program, saying that he was, well, getting used to that sort of thing now. The paper indicated that he probably would be out of Charlotte most of the summer, and Mrs. Horan would carry on his promotion activities while he is away. On April 27th, the Charlotte Athletic Club's effort drew a disappointingly small crowd. Al Massey beat Frank Torchberry by disqualification in the third round when he fell to the mat without being hit.
We see that every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah.
Hey,
Friday nights. We see that every.
have you noticed, though, another woman promoting pro wrestling? She was taking care of the promotions while he was off. I think he was promoting, I'm pretty sure he was promoting a circus in Canada, I believe, at this time. Rodney?
Yeah, he said that the elephants would be there, but they didn't show up. So he had just Steph elements, had them on a stick and putting them around there. Fritz Littlejohn of the Charlotte Observer filing in for Wade in the regular column on May 15, 1935, broke the news to the local enthusiasts about Irish Horan. He explained that he'd heard from Dan Parker, the renowned sports writer from the New York Daily Mirror, and a man that Horan once claimed to use to be negatively comment on his wrestling promotion. Parker, according to Littlejohn, declared he never heard of Mr. Horan, and further, at first a checkup at the wrestling headquarters in New York failed to produce anyone who knew Mr. Horan, either by sight or reputation. Littlejohn said Horan, originally from Peoria, was off publicized in a circus in Canada and wasn't scheduled to be back in town for the return of wrestling at the Armory. After 6 weeks layoff, Joe Bonaski beat Myron Minster in the May 18th Army effort, winning in an hour and 5 minutes before a small audience. 2 days later, Wade admitted in the Observer that they were all taking us for a gorgeous ride, and that's the Horan myth was shattered. Manaski even came out to explain that he was never managed by Horan, and Wade dubbed him as a cheerful liar. The influential sports writer concluded by saying wrestling ought to be washed up, as Horan himself is in this town. As Horan himself is in this town. It never appealed to me, as a reader of this column knows, and now that Horan has been completely exposed, I think a lot of other fellows will lose the zest for it. The wrestlers, as it says, have been guilty as Horan for the fakers that has been staged and the lies that have been told. On May the 28th, 1934, the North Carolina Athletic Commission permanently blacklisted Irish Horan for engaging in the promotion's professional athletic state. Anyway, they suspended him. He's out of there. And it was noted about that time that the commissioner, President C.W. Stockard of Greensboro, thinks highly of Jim Crockett, the Greensboro mat promoter, and apparently believes that wrestling, as it's being conducted there, is okay, and stated as that was stated in Wade's column. Oh my goodness!
Let me ask you this question, and just looking over that, was Jim Crockett at the time, was he in the ear of the commission and that?
Possible. Possible, but though, what Jim Crockett had is a reputation of providing quality shows, doing what he said. That has always been. I've never heard of Jim Crockett Sr. a discouraging word about him being dishonest or ripping anybody off. Never heard it, and I think that's what gives him this in with the commission president right there, because of his honesty and good business practices, which, as you can see, I can see why this guy is run out of town and blacklisted.
Yes. The public support for Crockett was followed up with the announcement in the June 12, 1934 edition of the Charlotte Observer that Crockett and Bill Lewis were planning to petition for a license to promote in the city. Lewis at the time was the frontman for the duo and well known for his outgoing personality. The former wrestler was preceded by a sterling reputation and had turned Richmond into a prominent wrestling city, while Crockett had started the business early in the decade in his hometown of Bristol. By 1934, his operations had expanded throughout Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina, with Greensboro being his largest town. Although the duo promised top names like Jim Londos, Rudy Dusick, and Joseph Odie, getting approval for the Boxing Commission wasn't a given.
In fact, Lukey Tenner and Joe Williamson, Horan's former lieutenant, were both considering filing applications for a permit to promote in Charlotte. The Charlotte Boxing Commission denied Lewis and Crockett during their June 18th session and approved the license of Williamson, who was planning a show for July the 9th. I'm sorry, that was June 18th session. Anyway, during the meeting, Chairman Childs asked the latter promoter whether wrestling was or wasn't on the level. Williamson answered, "Some of it is."
But they think Vince started that.
Yeah. Lewis sent a letter to Wade of the Observer, which was printed verbatim in the July 1st newspaper. He wrote, "I cannot understand why the Charlotte Boxing Commission will not permit me to promote wrestling in Charlotte. I understand the present promoter was told the commission he can get some good wrestlers through me. This is not so, and he cannot show any of the wrestlers working for me. I am now putting on wrestling shows in Richmond, Virginia Beach, and Roanoke. The Richmond sports writers would tell you that I am the only man who has been able to popularize the sport there. In 10 shows in Richmond, I have only had one substitute," talking about filling in a missing wrestler.
A war over talent and hearts and minds in Charlotte wrestling fans seems to be on the horizon, and it came down to whether or not Williamson could find suitable wrestlers. As of July the 9th date approached, as the July 9th date approached, the promoter announced that he would have to push the event back to July the 16th and announced that Al Stetcher would be facing Leo Alexander in the main event. Several other bouts were planned, and it seemed that Williamson was going to be able to revive wrestling successfully. Not so. On Tuesday, July 10th, Williamson told the Boxing Commission that he was calling off the program and leaving the door open once again for Crockett and Lewis. As they took advantage of the situation, refiling the permits to promote wrestling in Charlotte, the Boxing Commission approved their application on July the 16th, 1939, and sanctioned their initial wrestling offering set up on August the 10th, featuring heavyweights at Robbie's Fields. Crockett explained to the board that he was going to move to Charlotte and leave his brother in charge of the business in Greensboro, and planned to do some real promoting here, according to Gene Lawing report in the Observer. In the days leading up to the inaugural event, Crockett announced that he would have Bill Middlecoff and Stan Siskowski, I hope I said that right, in a 2 out of 3 fall main event, but then replaced the former with Herman Hickman, an ex-football player at the University of Tennessee. The problem seemed to continue when the Friday, August 10th show was postponed until the to the following Monday due to bad weather. Yet another substitution was needed to the undercard, but Crockett kept in good spirits and presented the first Charlotte wrestling show at the Armory on August the 13th, 1934.
And here's the card. At the Armory Auditorium in Charlotte, North Carolina, August 13th, 1934, Marshall Blackstock defeats Harry Lewis 19 minutes, 52 seconds. Jim Henry defeats Lee Collins 13 minutes, 22 seconds. Best 2 out of 3 falls. It was Henry Hickman defeats Stanley Sitkowski. Maybe Sitkowski. I'm not for sure how you really say his name, but it was 2-1. I guess Henry Hickman won 2 falls. Stanley must have won 1, and it was 21 minutes and 56 seconds.
Fritz Littlejohn of the Observer estimated the crowd was somewhere between 800 to 1,400 persons. That's a big difference, but anyway. The audience watched Hickman beat Sitkowski in a pleasing performance. Crockett, the obvious perfectionist, took a different stand, saying, "The main bout disappointed me a little, but I guess it was a fair show." Lewis was a traveling man and reportedly went to New York for real, unlike Horan, to secure a talent-sharing deal that would keep top-notch wrestlers moving through Charlotte. Crockett and Pete Moore, whom he shared the ownership of a circus, also increased their territorial size when they invaded Tampa in 1935. Attendance at his shows fluctuated like any other city, but by the end of his first year in Charlotte, Crockett had endeared himself to the local audience, sports writers, and people of influence, stabilizing his promotion for the long run. Crockett had successfully breathed life into a town burned out by Irish Horan and swayed cynical fans to return to the Armory to see the hottest action in the region. Speaking of Irish Horan, whatever became of him? Well, he moved on to the automobile stunt driving business, teaming with Lucky Teeter for a while and then going out on his own. His Hell Drivers toured the country from June to October, running about 100 live thrill shows annually. Horan became the celebrated voice of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and was known for announcing the Indy 500 until his death of a heart attack on May 2nd, 1958. In the entertainment business for upwards of 40 years, Horan had seen and done it all, from the smallest stages and the smallest tents to venues of all shapes and sizes across the country, and ultimately to the biggest wrestling spectacle that there was. His flair for the dramatic and colorful approach to everything he did certainly was exposed during his stay in Charlotte. But little did he or anyone else know at the time was that his collapse opened the door for the Crockett Empire to begin, and Big Jim made the best of that opportunity.
And we will look at Jim Crockett further. We'll look at after an event in August 13, 1934. We will go in depth and go all the way until Jim Crockett. Each and every week we'll go further and further, and until Jim Crockett Jr. sells his company to Ted Turner. Something I did not understand and didn't know, that Jim Crockett ran wrestling in Florida in 1935. Did y'all know that he went to Florida?
I had no idea.
We learn something new every day. Jim Crockett, we're going to find, made a lot of money. And not only did he promote wrestling, but he also promoted the Harlem Globetrotters, all kinds of different types of concerts. And we'll talk about those as well. If you enjoyed this video, give us the big thumbs up, subscribe to the page, and go one step further make sure you hit that notification bell. And we hope you enjoyed this video.